So, sir, one last thing before we get into the main event. Uh, there is one thing that we did do that we both did. We have not talked about. And I think it's time for a quick take on Weird, the Al Yankovic story. I was so excited for this movie, and let me tell you, it did not let me down.
Not at all.
Like I was there was like maybe like 2 or 3 days before it came out, I was like, maybe I need to ease up on the hype because whenever I do this, whether or not the movie's good or not, if it doesn't match what level I go into it with, I'm gonna be disappointed. So I could be seeing a 12 out of 10 movie, but if it didn't hit the 15 that I was expecting, I'm like, well, it was a fucking piece of shit.
It's the dangers of going in with expectations, period, I
Yeah.
think.
Um, but not that I would not have figured it out anyway, but I do think it was really smart of them to make, let it be known like while they were marketing this, like make sure people know like there is some truth to things that happen in the movie. Like they're based on, but it's a parody because, it's Weird Al. It's a parody of biopics in general. So it's like, I mean, by the end of it, when he's fucking in the jungle, you're kind of like, yeah, yeah. I don't think this part actually happened. Even if it didn't, or I mean, if it did, then we've got more questions than I ever possibly could have imagined for Mr. Weird Al. Of course,
Well,
actually, in the movie, he dies. So he
yeah,
dies in
during
1985.
yeah. When he got out of the jungle, I went out to my shelf and I grabbed my Killing Pablo book and I started ripping out pages because I was like, this is all bullshit. I know exactly how this happened.
But
Madonna and Weird Al fucking killed
I I don't want to talk too much about well, Madonna's character was great. Um I won't say too much about the actress because I'm a polite gentleman. But all I will say is that I'm like, it probably wasn't very hard for her to portray those types of attributes. Just say until I'm proven otherwise, until facts prove me otherwise.
him. Did you have a moment during the movie, by the way? Because I'll forget otherwise. I'm a little sad that Leslie Nielsen was not around to see this since Weird Al was in every Naked Gun movie.
Yeah, that would have been nice. That yeah.
Instead of instead of Weird Al coming off the plane or walking into the red carpet, it would have been Leslie Nielsen. Just absolutely, just flip the role. That would have been enough to make me go.
It almost like you don't even have to just make it one of those hidden in the background Easter egg things. You don't even have to acknowledge it, just have it visible in the background at one point. But you know how in some movies, like, you don't even have to ask what year it came out because inevitably there's always some scene where they're in like an office or a school or something, and you'll see a framed picture of whatever the current president is in the background
Every time.
every time. Um, so do that, have one of those moments, but instead of an actual president, just have it be Leslie Nielsen.
I'm I'm legitimately surprised that they didn't do that though.
Maybe they did something. I'm not saying that exactly, but maybe they did do something. And I just did. I did watch it. I literally, after we got done watching it, I watched it again with the wife.
Dude, I wanted to watch it again. As far as comedies go that have come out in the past 10 years, fuck it. In the past 15 years, this sets the bar pretty
The,
high.
I almost got my wish, but it was good enough. It was good enough because like we've always said anytime whenever we talk about Naked Gun or any of those kind of movies, we're just like, why did slapstick humor like this die? Like I get it, but I don't get it, you know? But this is as close as we've come to that. Again, it's just that. I mean, it's modern, but I mean, there are so many things like it was good. It was really good. One of my favorite things was when his roommates and shit all of a sudden started playing instruments. He's like, I didn't know you guys playing. He's like, didn't seem relevant until now. Like, yes, yes. It's self-aware. It's so self-aware. Um, but no, yeah, I absolutely loved it. Now I think I mentioned this on a show before it came. Well, obviously this is the first show since after it's come out. So, but I think I mentioned this before. I did find out, and now after watching it, I'm gonna go back to this bit of knowledge. Um, so Rainn Wilson, who played Dr. Demento, which was absolutely great. Like that was good. Originally, that was supposed to be Patton Oswalt, which he did make it into the movie for that small scene in the bar. But uh apparently like the day before shooting, like I guess he like fucked up his ankle or something happened to him and he was like shit. And then they just called Rainn last second and they're like, we need you to be Dr. Demento. And he's like, I'm fucking there. And I'm just like, you know what? I think this was the fate dealt a good hand that day because I'm like, you know what? I think it was better with Rainn Wilson as Dr. Demento.
I don't think I could have taken Patton Oswalt that long in the movie, to be
Hmm.
honest. But
Honestly, his little cameo was just enough, just perfect.
I did it.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember that's like there's been a couple of instances where something like that has happened and they've had to call in somebody at the last minute to replace a role, and every single instance of it that I can think of, it's like,
Gold.
oh, we dodged a bullet.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes them understudies should have been overstudies. That makes sense, right?
It
Um,
it does make sense in a John Wick lore way, yeah.
no. Um, but no, the cameos were great. I absolutely love that Thomas Lennon showed up as the accordion salesman when Al was still a kid. I absolutely adore Reno 911 and fucking Thomas Lennon. Dude just fucking cracks me up. So him just lying there bleeding on the floor, spitting up blood. It's like, and his mom says, "We're trying to have a moment."
I thought the you were at a polka party
Oh
was
yeah.
because I had stepped out of the room for a second to get something to drink and came back, and that was what was going on, and I was like, this is absurd. Tell me more.
This is one of those moments where going through all through school and having friends that are writers, uh, I've always heard this certain phrase. They've even used it in movies and stuff as well. But the whole idea that the writer crafts his own world never really. I mean, like I always understood it, but it never really clicked as much as it did with this movie. Because yes, I'm just like he really. I love how just so nonchalantly, without any explanation, it's just so matter of factly that like polka music is the coolest fucking shit to all of the kids everywhere. You know, like the whole scene with where he was pretending where he was Jim Morrison, and you know you want me to whip it out, and it was the accordion. It was just like I'm like this is so brilliant. This is fucking great. Now, the only The only negative thing I will say about this, which thankfully it did not affect me, but I'm not going to say that you need to know Weird Al's career and catalog extensively for it all to officially kind of click and work, but knowing his albums and songs and stuff definitely fucking helps. Like I think there's a good amount of jokes where if you didn't understand what they were trying to reference, you just be like, what are they doing? Like the whole thing with his mom being fat at the end. she's like, I know I'm fat. And it's just like, so that's how that song happened.
Which I thought they were just going to keep beating around the bush on that one to eternity, and then we got some nice payoff. And then the his dad,
Oh, that
uh,
was so that is by far the most ridiculous thing, but might have been one of the biggest laughs.
yes,
Because once he says it, once the cat is out of the bag, so to speak, you're just like you immediately know where it's going. And it's not bad. It's not a bad thing. Like, I was Amish, and I'm like, oh shit.
it's all coming together now in a way that I did not see coming. And then of course the movie goes off the rails even further right after that. But when you watched it the second time,
Mhm.
did it hit you as hard as it did the first time? Because I get the feeling that this movie is very rewatchable.
Oh yeah, I had no problem whatsoever. I laughed equally the same amount. Um, this is definitely like it's kind of weird because I mean, no pun intended, but uh, so he did what was it? I forget what year it was. I know it was the 80s, but he did UHF, the movie UHF.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, love that movie. Grew up watching it. I celebrate that movie. That was kind of like a cult classic movie where it's like not everybody talks about it, but when it gets brought up, people are like, "Oh yeah." Maybe there's like one guy in the room who's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" But then everybody's more than happy to educate that person too.
Yep.
When it comes to UHF, this is that, but you're taking away the cult part. It's just classic now. Like this will be watched 20 years from now, and dare I say, when the day comes and the world gets a little less weird, years from pass after that, people will watch this movie and be like, damned if it's not the truth. Like this was the real, this actually happened. And we'll be fine with it.
It's the once every 10-ish years of slapstick absurdity parody that we need that doesn't try too hard. I think that's the best part about it. It didn't try
Yeah.
too hard because it didn't have to.
Well, it's funny because it's like there's something so ingenious about his humor because he's not overly vulgar. Like he'll hint to things and there'll be innuendo, but I mean he going through all of his albums and stuff even like he doesn't like I mean he'll say ass about it. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty clean for the most part and then you're just like even now where I'm just like he's just well in the movie when I love how they spin it and Michael Jackson is trying to parody him instead. And he's just like Michael Jackson made a song called "Beat It." And he goes, "Oh, what is it about eggs?" And it's just like, who do you rap about food or just talk about food all the time? And it's just like, yeah, and it's still funny. I'm listening to shit, his old albums, and I'm like, these are still funny. I don't know why. It shouldn't be. This is like kindergarten humor, but it works.
That's because it's all about the Pentiums.
You know, it it reminds me of this old interview with Jon Stewart when he's talking about his reverence for George Carlin. And he was talking about, he's like, because that's kind of like one of the beauties of George Carlin is if you get into him as a kid, you may not understand all of the topics that he's talking about. They're very adult topics and government and all that stuff. But there's enough sprinkled in that like kids can enjoy it. Because like I said, Jon Stewart was just like, he had me at cheese tits. And it's like, that's what got you into George Carlin. But then as you get older and understand how life works, you're like, oh, this is what he's talking about. And it's like, I'm not gonna say that Weird Al is that fucking deep, but it's one of those things where you're just like you get hooked as a kid and it just stays with you. I would be very interested to see what kids nowadays think of Weird Al who didn't really. That's the thing because YouTube is pretty much the biggest anti Weird Al thing that has ever happened because he was kind of, I don't want to say he was one of a kind. There were obviously other people who did parodies and stuff like that. But once YouTube came along and everybody and their mom could fucking do what he does, like like the fact that he's even still around is amazing.
I think though he had a dare I say this, he had class about it because if I recall correctly, he would never parody a song without permission.
This is correct. Yep, that was the two things that I remember is him having to call into Saturday Night Live to talk to Kurt Cobain about parodying "Smells Like Teen Spirit," and the only question Kurt had was like, "Is it going to be about food?" And he was like, "No, it's going to be about how nobody understands your lyrics or what you're saying." And he's like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah, that's fine.
that's fine." And then I know that he had issues with Coolio. Well, it's not that he had issues with Coolio, it's just that I don't think that Coolio officially gave his full permission for him to do Amish Paradise. And that song meant a lot to Coolio. Like that shit came from the heart, you know what I mean? And he's like, "You're making a joke about it." So it's like I think Al unfortunately might have done it slightly just without verbal permission. I think he had written permission, just not verbal. Uh, and then he felt bad about it. But after time, Coolio, there were plenty of interviews with Coolio afterwards, and he was just like, "Oh no, I'm over it. It's there." He's like, "How can you be mad at Weird Al?" And the song's funny. So those are really the only two real encounters. And I know that I like what was her name? She was in UHF, but she was also in Saturday Night Live. But Victoria Jackson, that's her name.
Mhm.
Uh, she was his in to Saturday Night Live to talk to Kurt.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, that's cool. But no,
That is cool.
the only thing I don't like about Weird Al now is he doesn't have his signature look. I understand it's very 80s, you can't rock the fro and the stash and everything, but I'm like, that's the look, man. If anybody can still rock that look, it's him. The long hair and clean face is tripping me out.
And the LASIK. He got LASIK. Uh, do you remember on VH1 a show called I Love the 70s and I Love the
Oh yeah,
80s
yeah,
and I
yeah,
Love
yeah,
the 90s?
yeah. I watched all of those.
I One of the best historical cultural points of reference shows I've ever seen. Um, do you remember when they talked about the Unabomber and Weird Al was like, I don't know why everybody got me confused with him. We look nothing alike. And he
Oh
had the hood
God.
on and the sunglasses, and it looked just like.
Nice.
and I
Nice.
and I never really listened to Weird Al's music all that much, but I remember him from stuff like that, and I was just like, he's funny as fuck. That's dark humor. That's my kind of humor. Love it.
Last nod, I'll throw in a little history with the Weird Al. Uh, so when I was in fifth grade, now I was one of the, I don't know why this is, I consider this an achievement. I think it's just because my kids have had the exact opposite experience, but I went to the same elementary school the entire time, like kindergarten all the way through fifth grade. Um, so when it came time for that final year, fifth grade, like everybody knew everybody.
Hmm.
And there was the talent show. And me and my buddy signed up for the talent show. We didn't know what we were gonna do, but we signed up and we're like, oh shit, we heard Amish Paradise. We're like, we're doing Amish Paradise. We're gonna fucking dress up like Amish people, get up on stage and rap the song. It's gonna be great. Now, uh obviously we had to practice like weeks in advance, and we had to practice in front of the administrators of the school who were putting on the show. And then
Of
when it got
course.
to the part where we're laughing about somebody burning in hell, they're like, yeah, you can't, you're fifth graders, this is 1995, we can't have kids talking about hell on stage. Um so unfortunately we did not get to do Amish Paradise. We, however, did do Adam Sandler's Lunch Ladyland, and we dressed up like lunch ladies. And we won the talent show, and people still talk about that shit to this day. Even more so, a girl that went to school with me the entire time, she went K through 5 herself. Um, saw it, loved it, talked about it so much so afterwards that by the time her little brother got to fifth grade, him and his friend did Lunch Ladyland at their talent show because of mine.
You left your mark, sir.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. But when it comes to weird and Al Yankovic story, I 100,000% recommend, especially if you're familiar with his work. It's just it's a damn good time. It's a damn good